Hey, it's Abbey from Turnstounds. Remember to put your handbrake on before you put your car in park. Hey, I'm Abbey, a clinical nutritionist.
And I'm Shelby, a clinical exercise physiologist, and this is the Move Your Mind podcast.
We are sick and tired of people being led astray by false information about diet and exercise.
So join us as we discuss common misconceptions about food and fitness with the latest scientific research.
Let's get into it. Okay, Shelby.
Okay, Abby.
Okay, let's go. I don't really like starting the episodes.
We mention it, I think, every episode now. We're like, oh, I hate opening these things.
But it's because we've been having longer breaks.
Yes.
COVID got in the way, and then a power outage got in the way.
Always fun. And now we're going to do fortnightly releases.
Yes.
Anyway, and so every second week we'll release an episode, which means that, we're now recording even less because we do like a double up recording session. So
yes,
it's going to be fun.
It's interesting to get back into it. I'm like, I just want to talk, but once I've got headphones on and a soundy machine and cameras.
Because we're chatting so casually for like 10 minutes before we start and like discussing our episode. And then as soon as we hit record, we're like, ugh.
Anyways, enough of that. Enough of our
What
concerns.
are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about calculations of daily caloric needs or daily energy needs and what they mean, if they're accurate, why they are so widely used by the population, and if I use them, like how clinically relevant are they? Because with experiences with my clients recently, I do hear a lot of, oh, but are you sure? Because MyFitnessPal told me that I should be having 1,500 calories a day.
Yes.
Or, I ate badly this week. Why did you eat badly? Because I went over my daily calorie needs by 400 calories or something.
Yeah.
And then that often leads to, and then the next day I ate less.
Restricted.
And then I was just really hungry the next day. You see where I'm getting with that.
Absolutely.
So that kind of made my mind think, hold up. Let's have a look into this a little bit more because it's not actually something I use. Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
we'll
cool.
get to that.
Because I remember learning them in my nutrition unit at uni.
Yeah. And I remember learning them too.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't take notes on it because I just didn't agree with
Rebel
it.
Abby in the back of class going, I'm better than this. This is not what I'm going to do in my practice.
Not even that. I was like, my clients deserve more than this.
Yes.
They are not robots. I can't put in their weight and their height and their age and their PAL, so physical activity level, times it all together and go, you, Jessica, are a 1427 individual. Do that.
Absolutely.
Or something will be wrong.
Absolutely.
No.
I agree. Yeah, it's way oversimplified. Yeah.
So let's then talk about, what equations there are out there. There are actually 138 different equations to calculate food intake,
so
daily
many.
food intake.
Yeah.
So that in itself, I'm like, if something was accurate,
Because they're all different, right?
Yeah. That's why there's so many.
Absolutely.
Because this person believes you should be multiplying it by this. This person believes you should be accounting for a stress factor. This person believes, which I do kind of agree with that person,
I like
to be
that.
honest.
Yeah, I
do
like that
it.
inclusion at least.
Yeah, some are based on age categories and then some make you put in your individual age in a wider category.
Yeah.
Some are based on physical activity levels. Yeah. So the main ones that we use in Australia are the Harris-Benedict equation and the Schofield equation.
Yeah.
And these equations are kind of based on calculations for groups of individuals. So the Schofield equation, you just input your weight and then they have different numbers in the equation based on your age category.
Yeah.
So it'll be like female, age 13 to 17. This number plus weight times physical activity level equals your daily energy intake.
Yeah.
And then...
I think that was just an example, but you already run into issues with such a large age bracket.
Right?
Yeah, especially through those developing years.
And that's what I was looking into because these equations also were created 50 years ago. And puberty has an early onset these days. Environmental factors, epigenetics, not sure of the reason why, but that's just fact. Females in particular go through puberty a lot earlier.
Yeah.
So then, putting 13 to 17-year-olds in the same category.
It's massive.
Yeah. Even I'm just thinking about my friend group. I was a late bloomer myself.
Ditto.
So
Yeah.
I couldn't say that I'd need the energy needs that my friends did that went through puberty a lot earlier.
Absolutely.
I definitely didn't.
Yeah.
And then when they didn't need as much energy, I did.
Yes.
So that just shows in itself, if we had all sat down and calculated our energy
And
needs,
been eating the same.
that would have been a pretty dangerous activity.
Correct.
And then we've got the Harris-Benedict equation. So that one is weight, height, age, and an activity level. So they also have an injury factor, which it can be adjusted by. Rationale being, if you are injured, you require more energy for healing processes.
Yep.
But that's not often applied. And I actually did that one. I put in my values, and I got 1,436 calories per day for my basal metabolic rate.
Yes, BMR.
And then I got 1,976 for total daily energy expenditure.
Yeah, okay.
So let me explain the difference. So you've got your basal metabolic rate, which is, it's kind of exactly what it is. It's your baseline for all your metabolic functions to go on. So
to just function at a
Just
really,
be
really
alive.
basic level, you need that amount of calories.
So if someone was to be in a coma, then as like a dietitian in a setting, you'd be giving them around about their basal metabolic rate of energy needs because that's what they need to just stay alive.
Yeah.
But then total daily energy expenditure takes into account other aspects. So imagine, an equation. You've got total daily energy expenditure equals your BMR, basal metabolic rate, plus your thermogenic response to food, plus your physical activity expenditure.
Okay.
So we explain what BMR is,
Yes.
basal metabolic rate, thermogenic response to food. I won't get too complicated, but it's pretty much our body burns energy while digesting and absorbing food.
Yes. Okay.
So thermogenic involves that heat production. So just imagine, your body is a little furnace digesting and absorbing.
Using energy.
It's going to require energy.
Yeah. Just to digest the food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hear that quite a bit, and especially in like the fitness industry, like protein has a big thermogenic effect.
Yes. I remember bringing this up months ago saying, should we talk about this? And you're like,
Oh, it's just a bit much.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It does have a higher thermogenic activity in terms of the other macronutrients.
Yeah. I remember hearing something like young dancing days, something about like eating celery burns more calories than you take in because
of the thermogenic effect of celery.
and like how
I
much
did
you have
hear
to
that
chew
too,
it and
actually.
how little calories.
Yeah.
And that was like
I don't actually know the answer to that, but I guess celery is quite fibrous. So but celery composes of cellulose, which is undigested fiber. So maybe it's the energy expended by the bacteria that will ferment
that's cool.
the undigested fiber that makes it
Anyway,
an energy consuming activity. I don't know.
that was a
Food for thought.
deep memory that got pulled out just now.
No, I remember it too.
It.
Something, there's values like 9 and 8. That's what's in my head. Yeah, anyways. That's the thermogenic response to food. But I think that's a cool thing to grasp.
Absolutely.
Your body actually uses energy when you intake energy. So that's why calories in, calories out, maybe not so much.
Yeah. Yep.
And then we've got physical activity expenditure. So that's kind of in brackets of you've got very sedentary, lightly active, moderately active, extremely active. I think that's kind of the values. And then the number that you multiply the equation with for total daily energy expenditure goes up based on your activity level, which makes sense. If you do more, you're going to need more per day.
Yep.
So, that's why my total daily energy expenditure level went up quite a bit more than my BMR because I would put myself in moderately active.
I would have called you moderately active. Yeah.
Not an elite athlete, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to be.
Especially when the top category has to be for those who train hours a day.
Yes.
Like, you know,
yes.
endurance
You've got to
athletes
account
have
for
to fit
those
somewhere.
people.
So then that would bump you down a
Yeah.
notch.
Yes.
But yes.
Very true. Yeah,
It's cool.
they have a place.
It sounds good.
It does.
It's like,
It
yeah,
really
that
does.
seems like it factors in everything I do. Like, that sounds like a good idea.
But no, we know there's so much more to it. Like, I can't even begin. Like, thinking about the holistic consults that I run.
Yeah.
Just, I go through, reproductive function, things like where are you at your menstrual cycle? The equation doesn't take that into account.
Absolutely not.
You need more energy when you're ovulating. You need more energy when you're menstruating.
Yeah.
What about your nervous system? Are you stressed at the moment? What's your workload like? Does your brain require more energy because you're a teacher and filing more reports?
Yeah.
Are you a PE teacher and your kids are doing their last examinations and you have to join in with them? Like, you know,
Yeah.
and then you've got, even within nervous system, mental health. Like, if you're suffering with a mental illness, you're going to require more energy to support your neurotransmitter synthesis. aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then endocrine system. That's a big one. So hormonal influence on our energy needs. Like, you've got cortisol. If your sympathetic nervous system is going nuts, you're going to be chewing more energy with every single thing you use because your body's basal metabolic rate is increased.
Is higher, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not taken into account. I did mention the stress factor.
Yeah.
That is in the Schofield equation.
Mm-hmm.
You can add it in. But then again,
And it adds food, like it adds calories?
yes,
Yeah.
it does.
If
So
you're
the higher the
stressed, you
stress,
need
the
to eat
more needs you have,
Yeah.
which I definitely agree with.
Yeah.
And then even, musculoskeletal system. Injury factor, yes, that's in the Harris-Benedict equation.
Yeah.
But if you're going on MyFitnessPal or any of those other calculator things, you chuck it in Google, that's not going to be included. That's something
No.
extra that a clinician can do, or if you look it up, you could probably do it too.
Because even out, like if I Googled just before we started how to calculate daily calories, and the first one that comes up was just BMR and an activity level. Like that's all that was in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially that's saying humans are their function of their organs plus exercise they do.
Yeah.
We are so much more than that.
Yes, I agree.
We are so much more than that. So that's where...
Because then what type of exercise do you do?
Yeah.
Because you could do yoga 5 hours a day, and that doesn't mean the same as
Yes.
a high intensity class every day.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And that's why I wanted to talk about this
Yeah.
topic, because they're a good... Are they even though? They're an okay baseline. They are used,
Yes.
but the whole issue is nutrition isn't an exact science. It's just
Well,
not.
people aren't.
No,
exact.
and that's the thing.
The thing you're trying to calculate isn't a constant.
You're trying to reduce a complex organism to an equation.
Yeah.
And there's just so much wrong with that.
Yeah.
So I don't use them. I don't use them at all. And I'm very reluctant to use them, to be honest.
So you don't even use them as a baseline and then change as you go. You just go, nah,
Not
we're
at all.
going to figure this out.
If I put a meal plan together, the software that I have lists, it kind of puts together someone's daily energy needs based on the height and weight that I will put in just as part of their client profile.
Yep.
But I just say, don't look at that.
Cool.
I might just completely ignore it. Unfortunately, there's not a way I can take it off.
Yeah.
Wish there was.
Yes.
But I just want people to ignore it.
Cool.
Because it's not important. Because for me, it's not about the number. It's about what you're intaking.
Quality over quantity.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, quantity is also important, but I'm like, you get this number of
What is it?
1,642, but where are you getting that from?
Yes.
That's another thing.
Absolutely.
And that's, we've all heard of if it fits your macros, right? So people get these values and they're like, well, I need this much per day. Oh, okay, cool. Then I can have a tub of ice cream for dinner because I have 500 calories left.
Yes. Yeah.
No. Your body does actually know where the calories are coming from.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's the whole argument with if it fits your macros. People say, don't you see on Instagram? Sorry, my brain's going in a million different directions right now.
Trying to follow along.
But I just
all right,
get
stay with
just
it.
so much about it. Like, have you ever seen those infographics?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, do you want a raw treat for 400 calories, or do you want a Freddo Frog for 100 calories, or like a Mars bar for 200 or whatever. And it's like, healthy food is good, but think about how much you're intaking.
Oh, that seems dangerous.
And it steers people away from eating something with a lot more
Real
nutritional
food.
value.
Yeah.
Literally real food.
Yeah.
Because it's higher in calories.
Mm.
So that's where the argument comes from, because if you go back to energy calculations, people think they're doing the right thing by fitting within their number.
Yeah. So do you give a number for your clients, or are you purely looking at, is there enough protein, are there enough carbohydrates? So you don't even calculate a calorie number?
No.
Cool.
Not at all. The only time I will do that, actually I haven't done it yet, is when the changes that I make just based on someone's existing diet. Mm-hmm. So if someone comes with a weight loss goal, that's okay. I'll look at their existing diet and I will make 4 to 5 changes in the first session on ways to reduce daily energy intake.
Yeah.
And I will also suggest exercise to increase their daily energy expenditure.
Yeah.
And 9 out of 10 times that has the results we need.
That's enough. Yeah.
Yeah. And if it doesn't, quite often the client will come back and say, I actually didn't do what you told me to do.
So that's kind of then dealing with like almost like an arbitrary number, like whatever you're eating, just eat less of that.
Yes.
It doesn't really matter what that total number is.
Because there is a cause and effect. If you eat a certain way and you're gaining weight, you change what you eat and you're likely to lose weight.
Yeah.
But in saying that, there are values that can interfere with that. So as part of my process, I will also look at things like stress response and inflammation, hormonal imbalance.
Yeah.
That could be barriers to that change.
Yeah.
And I would tend to address them first.
Yeah.
But then when dietary changes come in, the only time I'll do a calculation is if they don't achieve the desired results.
Cool.
Kind of a process of elimination.
Yes.
I'll do everything more holistically and in incorporation with the lifestyle without like black and white.
Reducing them to an equation. Yeah.
Yes.
But then if none of that kind of stuff works, you might use it as a supporting evidence kind of
Yes.
almost guideline but not guideline.
Yes.
Yeah.
But often not as a total daily energy intake. I'll do it as macronutrients.
Yes.
So then instead of, and that steers away from the mentality that it doesn't matter what I eat as long as I hit the number.
Exactly. So then you're more like, because we've talked about before, like certain percentages from carbohydrates, certain percentage from fat and protein. So then you'd more focus on that rather than calories anyway.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So then people appreciate that there's certain nutrients that have a role and there's a reason why you need this, this and this.
And that's very important in weight loss. That's a very important lesson to learn.
Isn't it?
For if you need to make long-term changes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was looking into that type of thing a bit, like what then if we're going macronutrients, so people need this many grams of carbohydrates or this many calories from carbohydrates, fat, protein per day, what does Google say?
Yes. This came up the other day. We just started stocking protein powders in the gym and I'm still looking into them or whatever. And someone said to me, how much protein do I need every day? And I went,
Well, you're not meant to know.
I don't know.
Good.
Well, yeah, exactly. And then I wondered how easy it would be to Google how much protein do I need a day and if that calculation would be of any service to us.
Much, much more than daily caloric needs.
Cool.
Much more.
Yeah.
So I think I found this, I think I searched daily, no, I said macronutrient needs for each individual per kilo of body weight.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what
That's
I searched.
what I've usually found. It's like this many grams per kilo of body weight. Yeah.
And it was a journal article. I think it was the British Journal of Nutrition. But it was kind of a review of what the literature has found so far. And it said, individuals engaged in a general fitness program, which is 30 to 40 minutes per day, 3 times per week, can typically meet macronutrient needs and not exceed them by consuming a normal diet, funny word, normal, what is normal, consisting of. So this is what they've said. So 45 to 55% carbohydrates, which is 3 to 5 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. And then 10 to 15% protein, which is 0.81.
That's I remember
usually
0.8.
the value you'd see.
Yeah.
Grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. And then 25 to 35% fats, which is 0.5 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. These numbers, listeners are probably like, I can't
I've
even
already
think
forgotten
about what that means.
No. And that just to me seems so, if I was to figure all that out and then have to figure out how much food that actually is, I'm already tired. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. And that's why you see a professional.
Yes.
Because this is how my brain works.
Yeah.
I did do the calculations for myself again because I think that's like a useful tool for people to be like, oh, okay, I see.
It's good to compare the differences as well.
Yeah, so I did it smack bang in the middle. So with carbohydrates, it says 3 to 5 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. I did 4 grams.
Cool. Yep, that seems
So
reasonable.
I weigh 60 kilos, so that means I would need 240 grams of carbohydrates per day.
Okay.
And I was like, do I consume that?
Yes.
Like, do I abide by these journal article recommendations? And I kind of went through like a average day. So like half a cup of oats, that would be like 30 grams of carbohydrates, right? Then I'd usually have a banana or a piece of fruit. That would be like another 30 grams of carbohydrates. And then with lunch, I'd have like maybe a cup of carbohydrate in some form, keeping in mind that like starchy vegetables have carbohydrates. So then I'd say that would kind of go to 60 grams. And then with dinner, I'd probably have another 60 grams of
So
carbohydrates.
it's only like 180.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you've got to keep in mind that I'd probably have another snack of fruit. So that would
Yes.
bump it up by
Or
another
something
30.
else during the day.
Yeah. So I think I would pretty much hit that.
Cool. Yeah.
And some days maybe more.
Exactly.
And some days maybe less.
Exactly.
And that's why you don't want to follow it so strictly.
Yes.
And if I was to follow these guidelines strictly, I'd end up in a pretty damaging relationship with food, which I did.
How
and I've
common?
done that.
How common is that story? Not even to go as extreme as lovely Abbey went, but just to be like, I started this fitness regime, I started this eating plan, and then I went way too far into it. And a year in, I was so unhappy, and I was just looking at everything so minutely, and then they have to pull back out of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real shame, but sometimes you have to go through those things to learn. And I definitely think that's with my own journey. Through treating yourself like a robot, you realize that you're a lot more than that, and you deserve more than that too.
Because things start breaking down that you don't expect to break down, like your mood and your menstrual cycle and things like that, where you're like,
if you're eating
these
too
are
little,
actually impacted. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
And then you get into a guilt cycle with food too. If you set yourself a number and you go beyond it or below it, that gives yourself a sense of failure in one way or another.
Yeah, there's a fail-win situation that then comes up.
And what's interesting is food has absolutely no emotion attached to it. We are the ones that give food an emotion.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's unfortunate that a lot of the time it's negative. One part of my recovery journey was realizing that food can actually be positive. Like, food is social, food is for enjoyment.
Yes.
So then often with my clients, I'll discuss with them that, okay, you have a goal of weight loss, but part of maintaining weight loss is also having things that you enjoy and being able to socialize and realize that you can enjoy food, but you have goals that you want to stick to for your own health.
Yes.
And health is happiness. So if you go out for food, that's part of health because it's happiness.
Yeah.
And if that's going to allow you to feel like you're comfortable with the changes you're making throughout the week or 80% of the time, then heck, go for it. Like, it's just such a big picture, isn't it? But with the carbohydrate guidelines, I was thinking about macro mapping too, because the way I work with my clients is the macro mapping.
Absolutely.
And subconsciously, I work it around those kind of grams.
Yes.
Without being too strict.
Yes.
So for macro mapping, like one serve of carbohydrates, I equate to like 30 grams of carbohydrates. So I will look at someone's, I'll see their weight, obviously, they'll let me know. And then through a holistic health consult, I'll look at a stress factor, I'll look at any injuries, I'll look at nervous system activity, physical activity level, and then I'll kind of gauge them in how many grams they'll need per day, and then say, okay, if you need 300 grams, then you're going to need to incorporate 10 serves of carbohydrate in your day. And that's kind of how I work.
Cool.
And I do enjoy working with clients that way because then they can build and plan around their daily needs.
That's really nice.
Yeah, and then there's protein.
Of course, yeah.
Yes. So for me, being 60 kilos, that says 48 grams per day. Personally, the protein guideline, I would like it to be a bit more.
Yeah.
I think protein is underconsumed in general.
You've mentioned that.
But 1.2, so 1 to 1.2, that's where I'd kind of like clients to sit.
And the usual one is 0.8.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And there's been research, I think like 2 grams per kilogram body weight per day has no negative effects, but
yes,
I wouldn't be doing that because in terms of energy intake, you're probably, and like fullness levels, you're probably displacing other beneficial nutrients.
Fair.
And I don't think there's a big need for that.
But over consuming protein isn't a massive worry necessarily.
No, not many people
like
would
a day
go
on
over.
a everyday person kind of.
You'd have to be having a lot to put your kidneys under stress and like your excretory processes because excess protein, you've got lots of nitrogen sitting around in there that you've got to get rid of. And nitrogen imbalance causes some health concerns. So, yeah, you'd have to be having a lot. General pop, no. I'm just thinking people that pump the protein powders having like 4 scoops per day and like 1 kilo steaks and excessive amount, like a whole chicken.
Yes, cool.
But I think with most of our listeners, we wouldn't be having that problem.
Yeah.
I think 90% of the time you wouldn't be having enough.
Yes, and that's typically what you've said before as well. Yeah.
So with these guidelines, I most definitely would go over the protein. So I'd usually incorporate protein powder in my breakfast too, like in my oats. So that'd be 25 grams. And then I'd have like a good serve of chicken with my lunch, which would be 25 grams. So I'm already over. And then I've still got dinner left. Yeah. So that could be something else. Yeah. So I definitely fit into the 1 to 1.2 per day.
Yes.
And for the lifestyle that I live, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Absolutely not.
Because I do exercise. I do need protein for muscle synthesis, but everyone needs it too.
Exactly, yeah.
And even things like...
You're always kind of like rebuilding stuff.
Yeah. Like even elderly population, they need that amount too because naturally aging processes break down and put their body to get rid of amino acids, so they need to increase their intake.
Absolutely.
But then once again with macro mapping, like 1 serve of protein would kind of be 25 grams of protein. So then I'd always put in a serve into each main meal.
Yes.
Or if you go a half serve with a main meal, incorporate it as a snack. So that's kind of the holistic view.
Yeah.
So you get it in intervals throughout the day, which is important too, to encourage that, your muscles constantly regenerating. So to get in enough at specific intervals.
That's what I ended up saying to this client when she asked me how much protein she needed a day. I said, I'm not really allowed to tell you. Plus, I don't know.
Yeah.
But real easy way to go about it is incorporate protein in every meal.
Yeah.
And then I left it at that.
That's kind of what I say too.
Yeah.
Like start by putting a source of protein in each main meal.
Yeah.
And that's already going to have positive, positive effects.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, you've got fat. So 0.5 to 1.5. With me calculated, I did it at 1 right in the middle. So 60 grams of fat a day.
Yeah.
So I'd have 1 to 2 tablespoons of peanut butter with my breakfast, which is like 15 grams. And then I'd have some avo, which would probably be like another 15. So that's 30. And then with dinner, I'd probably have like a 10 grams of fat or something through just like adding some oils or if I had salmon, it'd be a bit more.
Yeah.
And then I'd probably snack on nuts or something or a nut bar or some more peanut butter because why not?
You can eat my serves of peanut butter.
So good. And that actually made me realise, I probably am not hitting my fat goal. Which is interesting though because when I do realise I haven't eaten enough, what I crave is fats.
Yeah, cool.
So that was just a bit of an eye-opener for myself.
Yeah.
And that's another thing where these things can be beneficial because you can realise, where am I putting my energy? And a lot of the time with Western society, it would be carbohydrates predominate, proteins low, and fat would usually be high as well, I'd say.
Yeah.
But for me, it looks like, I don't really have enough dietary fats. And then, with macro mapping again, 10 grams is like a serve. So then I'll just put it into their needs that I believe.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's a bit more holistic picture. Makes people appreciate nutrients for what they are and their roles, and consistent, balanced eating rather than a number, which can cause guilt, binging, restricting. We're not robots. We're more than that. So please see a health professional.
That's what my question is. So obviously it costs money to go see someone like yourself, and we don't all have disposable income. When should it be a priority to actually get this stuff sorted and not just eat what you eat kind of thing?
Yeah. I think when you're not achieving goals, when food becomes overwhelming, when you're developing too much food guilt, when you see yourself binging and restricting.
Just not knowing as well. If you are one of those people who are like, I have no idea what to do, probably worth spending the not really that much money to learn about it.
Yeah. I think people will know when they need that extra guidance.
Yeah.
I definitely don't think everyone needs it.
No.
But it's worth
when your
money.
goal is a priority.
Yes. If you prioritize nutrition as an aspect of your health.
Yeah.
And I mean, it might only take 1 to 2 sessions with someone like me, because I'll give you the guide and I'll give you the education.
My Abbey is so good because she actually gives you the tools you need.
Yeah.
Oh, I love sending people to you because they're like, oh, I've seen so-and-so or whatever, and they just wanted me back every 4 weeks for a meal plan. And I was just like, go and actually learn from Abbey. And
if you come to me and you're like, I want macro mapping, I want a nutrition review consult and macro mapping 2 sessions, and you'll have what you need.
Yeah. To then adjust
Yeah.
in some respects going forward throughout your different life stages.
Yeah, and then it can be a 30-minute consult each month just for a check-in or email check-ins.
Because then you build a relationship and then it's fun to talk about, and then you get more questions as you go further down your journey.
And that's what I've seen with clients too. Macro mapping is a really cool learning curve for them. Yeah. Like they become aware of food and you can see their brain ticking like, oh my gosh, like I'm actually not having enough protein. Okay, I'm a vegetarian. What are vegetarian sources of protein? So that's already a knowledge that they've appreciated. Mm-hmm. And if I go out to dinner, oh yeah, this is what I usually eat. I need to be careful of incorporating this. Oh, that's why I feel hungry at the end of the day because I miss my protein serve at breakfast and lunch.
Yep. Very cool.
Yeah, and they'll come to me with heaps of questions and I'll just like reel them off like, yes, no, okay, let's think about this. And then they learn so much from it.
It's very cool.
It's really, yeah, I love doing that with people. So, yeah, how long have I been talking for?
Just over half an hour.
Oh, I did have a little 30. Bit more to talk about. I'm like, do we go?
What is it? What do you want to talk about?
I did want to talk about then.
Switch off now or continue listening up to your listeners.
Hey, don't switch off. I got some cool things to say.
Go for it.
I'm like talking about the effects of undereating. So that's kind of where this episode came about. So I started thinking I see too many people that actually don't eat enough. Yeah. And I had an email from a client that she came for weight loss and body composition optimization. Yep. And I went through her diet and my first thought was, you're not eating enough. Like you need more carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. And I told her that. She was like, what? She was like, I want to lose weight. Like, and I was
usually
like, just trust me.
Trip out.
Yeah, trust me. And then I got an email probably like 4 weeks later, like, oh my gosh, I just did my body scan. I've decreased in body fat and increased in muscle mass and decreased overall weight by a small amount. Yes. I've got so much more energy. I actually even haven't been exercising much because I've been unwell, but I've been making sure I've been eating. And she was like, this actually works. And I was like, I know. And it was actually nice for me to read that because it just really does work. So then I got to thinking about how common under-eating is and the effects it has on people.
Absolutely. So, a story I wanted to tell you when I heard that you wanted to bring this up is a client at my gym where you did a seminar talk somewhat recently. She attended and you kind of were like, talking about the importance of carbohydrates, especially in this really active population. And she's been eating more carbs because you kind of like allowed her to, you opened up this opportunity that it's okay to eat more. And she just feels amazing. And like it's fun again to eat. And she's seeing all these gains and she's PBing deadlifts and she's just like feeling amazing. And she's like, because I'm eating more and it's amazing and it's so fun because I'm allowed to. And
oh my God.
So, and that came directly from your talk with them.
That is so cool.
Really, really cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I love that she said it's fun to eat again.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that these dumb calorie counters can make people feel. They feel fearful about food because everything's a number and everything's a fight to keep within this certain realm.
Yeah.
And it's like, stop being scared of foods. Think about all the good things that food can do for you. And eating can be fun. Like, it can be so enjoyable.
It should be.
Yeah, I treat every meal like, how can I get the most nutrients and make this taste freaking amazing? And it's just great.
Cool.
I love food.
Good on you.
But yeah, back to effects of underfeeding.
Yeah.
There's kind of one main study or two main studies that I wanted to talk about just to get people thinking. There was one in 1988, which is kind of where the thought process started about how not eating enough can change our physiology and make our bodies adapt to using less energy and the consequences it has.
Mm-hmm.
So the study was done on women. They were healthy, non-obese. They were on no medication other than the oral contraceptive pill.
Yep.
Not all of them, just some of them.
Yeah.
It wasn't performed prior to the menstrual period, so in the week prior, due to the changes in sodium and water retention. So I thought that was really cool. Prior to the study, they were having 130 to 160 kilojoules per kilogram of their body weight per day.
Okay.
Which we've been talking calories for most of this episode. So that would equate to, you divide kilojoules by 4.2 to get calories.
Yeah.
But for someone like me, that would be like just over 2,000 calories.
Quite a lot.
Per day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I reckon I'd eat that actually.
Yeah?
I wouldn't call that quite a lot.
I think I'm saying quite a lot because your measurement before from the calculation was 1900.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
that's where I got that from. Yeah.
I see. But they had them underfed for a week, which was 60 kilojoules per kilogram of body weight per day.
Mm-hmm.
So for a person like myself, that would have been 860 calories. So it took them from like total daily intake of 2,000 to calorie restricted, so underfed, which is 860.
Less than half. Yeah.
So that is so little.
So little.
Can't even, that'd be breakfast and lunch.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
I know people, yeah, exactly.
And there's diets out there like Fast 800. That's what I've heard quite a few clients go on recently. But yeah, that's a very small amount of food. And then after the week of underfeeding, they gave the study population a around 430 calorie meal, which is pretty standard. I'd say that would be where most of my meals set up.
Cool.
In the form of a drink that was consumed over 7 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And they took measurements of how weight changed after the underfeeding and then the body's response to the meal after the underfeeding and also how their body's baseline measurements changed after just a week of underfeeding.
Yeah.
So what happened was their weight reduced by about 2 kilos.
Over the week of underfeeding?
Which, yes, it would.
Yeah.
If you're restricting that far.
That's very far.
And that's what I see, like, some people will see health practitioners, nutritionists and dietitians, and they get results. But, yes, if I said half your daily intake, of course you're going to lose weight. Absolutely. But what's the repercussions of that? Yes. And in your relationship with food as well as your blood parameters, which we're going to discuss. So what they noticed was thyroid function, active thyroid hormone reduced.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of showing that all your basal metabolic processes have slowed down.
Yes.
Resting energy expenditure decreased.
Yes.
Because your body adapts to intaking less energy by expending less energy.
Absolutely.
So even with exercise, they measured that their body started to burn less energy.
During exercise,
even walking. So, and then all of their little tasks decreased. So they reduced their fidgeting, their daily steps, motivation decreased.
The body goes into protective mode.
Yeah. And there was also lower thermogenesis. So the body used less energy to consume food because obviously it didn't have as much energy going in.
Absolutely.
So that's just pretty interesting, isn't it? Yeah. And that will lead me to something in just a minute.
Yep.
But another thing was that glycemic response increased after underfeeding.
Yeah.
So with caloric restriction, in general society, it's usually carbohydrates that go down the drain when people want to reduce intake.
Absolutely.
And what happens with reduced carbohydrates, your body kind of builds a glucose intolerance.
Yes.
So it's not like insulin resistance or anything like that. It's just that if you don't give your body a stimulus to break down and uptake, it's going to lose its ability to do those
Kind
functions.
of forgets how to do it.
Yeah.
Not forgets, but like, yeah, absolutely. Like it does it less efficiently.
Yeah. So what they observed was the glycemic response to the test meal after underfeeding was doubled. So they had the breakdown of glucose. It occurred a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm.
But what didn't happen was the accompanied increase in insulin, which should have happened with an increase in blood sugar.
Absolutely.
So they had this glucose just swimming around, but their body, because of the underfeeding, wasn't as responsive to it.
Yeah.
So insulin didn't increase at the amount it should have.
So it had a really big spike from, say, like stomach to blood, but then it wasn't uptaken into cells from the blood at the same rate
that it should have been.
Yeah.
So obviously underfeeding is reducing your body's ability to uptake and utilize carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So that's not an adaptation that we want, is it? Because
After a week, that's a pretty
just a week.
dramatic change. And do we know how long that change stays there for?
Lasted for no.
But we doubt that would be a chronic adaptation. Would you be able to get back to a more normal response with
most
proper
definitely.
feeding? Yeah.
But then I think the repercussions of the longer I'm just thinking about what would actually happen with this underfeeding scenario.
Yeah.
It could be on a diet for 12 weeks. It could be if you suffer from like restrictive eating and
Just
then
about to
binging, it
say.
could be
Yeah.
just a day or 2 days.
Yeah.
But then the fact that just a week doubled glycemic response.
And more than likely people aren't doing this just once. They'll have a week or days, like you just said, of restrictive in whatever form that comes in, and then get hungry and eat a lot, and that doesn't happen just once.
And from my knowledge of glycemic response, if you're not uptaking the glucose that you have, your body's going to crave more. Because
the cell doesn't know that it's
actually
there.
have it. It's just in your blood, but
So-
your body's not like, we're actually taking this in.
So from your cell's perspective, you don't have anything there.
Yeah.
And so they're sending information going, feed me, feed me.
Yeah.
And so that's what you then feel as hungry or cravings. Even though it's sitting there just on the other side of the barrier, you just can't use it.
And that's why it's very common after underfeeding with dieting that you get all those intense cravings when you return back to normal eating.
Yeah.
Or after with binge restrict behaviors, you crave a lot of carbohydrates and quick release energy because your body actually has reduced its ability to use carbohydrates when you do consume them.
Mm-hmm.
So under eating does have lasting negative effects, which is probably going to detrimentally affect the overall goal that you do have
Just about
by
to say, and
under
they
eating.
do not align with what you're trying to achieve by under eating.
Yeah, and that brings me to the second study actually, because this one was on men, and they did like two protocols. So they did underfeeding, which was reducing standard intake by 50%, and then followed it by a period of refeeding, which was going from underfeeding to plus 50% of their baseline, so doing a jump.
Yep.
Or they started from baseline and just did a caloric surplus.
Or 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they either went from under to over or normal to over.
Yep.
And yeah, this was so interesting. The changes in body weight were plus 1.8 kilos with just overfeeding from baseline.
Yeah.
But when they did the overfeeding after caloric restriction, which they call refeeding,
Yeah.
they gained 3.5 kilos,
So nearly double.
eating the
or
same
double.
amount of food.
And had they lost any weight from that underfeeding?
Yes, they did.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
did it work out equal, or did that 3.8, 3.5, whatever you said, still result in?
They still...
So that's from baseline, sorry? Is that 1.8 plus from baseline weight, or is that?
So with the
from the weight
restriction, they lost 5 kilos.
Okay.
So overall, they were still less than what they were.
Yeah.
But the purpose of this study was to show how bodily adaptations due to underfeeding then put yourself in a position to gain weight faster and in somewhat of an unhealthy
Excessive
way.
response. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're going back to the reasoning, you put your body in a position where it reduces energy expenditure, reduces thermogenesis, you reduce your activity, thyroid hormone goes down, and then you go back to like normal eating or overeating a little bit. And because your body's not used to that, if it can't use the energy, what does it do? Store it. So you're more likely to gain weight.
Yeah.
And that's what you see with chronic dieters, because they undereat, and then they go back, they achieve their goal, their weight loss goal, and then they are like, oh, cool.
Yeah, I can just return.
I can just go back to eating. Mind you, they didn't learn anything, so they're probably going back to a caloric surplus for their needs, and they gain weight.
If you think of the macro mapping, it would all be out.
Most definitely. So the ratio of macronutrients would be out.
Yeah.
And then they're like, I gained weight plus more. And that's exactly what this shows.
Like yo-yo dieting type thing, right? Up and down, up and down.
Because you're kind of putting your body in a state where it would reduce everything in response to food, and then you're over-consuming, so it doesn't know what to do with it.
Which makes sense with what we know about our body. Our body likes consistency. Our body likes moderation. Our body likes knowing what to expect. If you keep chucking too much, too little kind of thing, we just can't, in any respect, exercise and stress and sleep and anything you factor in. You can't deal with extremes going backwards and forwards. We have to keep it more.
Yeah. So tying into, the reason of energy restriction, my question is, do you want results or do you want health?
Yes. Well, even the results, you want long-term results, you want short-term results.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Do you want results quickly? Is your purpose to lose weight? Yeah. Or is your purpose to lose weight healthily? Yeah. Because they're very different things.
Because even if you have like the story of I have a wedding in however many months and I need to lose this weight. So even if you do get down, lose your 5 kilos you wanted to for that one day, what's then going to happen when you have a good time that night, eat a whole bunch, go back to your normal food after, you're just going to lose it all.
Yeah.
Plus maybe gain more.
Yeah, and also I just think about the mental health side of things. You'll probably feel like a bit of a failure because you did all this, and then you're going to be like, oh, well, F it. Like, I hit where I want to go. Let's just go crazy with this.
And
that's why, like, I do understand society and I understand people's goals, and some people might come to me with a goal like that. And they're like,
a shorter term goal.
I've got 4 weeks to lose this much.
Yeah.
And I'll be realistic and say the only way you're going to do this is to put yourself in an unhealthy state.
Yeah.
So let's reduce your intake safely and manageably so you will lose weight. Yeah. But I was like, you need to address underlying thoughts, which makes you feel like you need to look like that for starters.
Absolutely.
And, okay, we will lose weight quickly if you're diligent.
Yeah.
But then we will slowly guide you back in a way that's not going to be detrimental to your underlying physiological functions, but also your mental health in relationship with food.
I get things like that as well from clients coming into the gym wanting to lose weight, and I have a very similar conversation about them. And then I also add in, but resistance training makes you feel so cool, so probably will make you feel you'll feel better about yourself in these couple of weeks anyway, just because you feel accomplished and you can see the weights going up and you see all these other things. So potentially nothing will even change, but you'll feel better about yourself for this event, which is really what we're after.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Isn't it just?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, confidence is what they want, isn't it? And you can get confidence through a lot of ways
from being skinnier.
Other than appearance.
Yeah,
very good point.
And you can change your perspective of what you see. What you see can be exactly the same, but how you perceive it and factor in that information can make you feel good or make you feel not good.
It's the behaviour. Sometimes
and
you think
thoughts behind,
yeah. Sometimes you think behaviour A is going to get you to the thought that you want or the feeling, i.e. confidence, but maybe not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I like that thought a lot.
Eat food.
Yeah, I know. Moral of the story, don't be afraid to eat. Food can be your friend. Under-eating if you do that, you do that, and you know the consequences it has. I've been there.
Me too.
I've been there extremely, but I've also been there in the point of overeating, then undereating.
Yeah.
In terms of guilt. Often that is part of recovery, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You're not a robot. If you're struggling with how much you feel like you want to eat or daily needs, see a professional. It is so worth it, even if it's 1 to 2 sessions.
Yeah. You don't need to do it alone.
No.
People study years to be able to help you with this stuff.
Yeah. And if you do want to improve the way you eat, just think about each macronutrient at every main meal.
Think of what you're gaining from eating.
Yeah, most definitely. And come see me.
Abbey Renee _nutrition on Instagram.
Yes.
She's got a website now as well.
AbbeyReneeNutrition.com.
Yeah. You can reach us through turnsounds@gmail.com if you need to reach Abbey through us, or we have a Turnsounds we have an Instagram, moveyourmind.podcast. You can also access Abbey through that one.
Yeah.
So lots and lots of ways.
And I'm even happy to do like email consultations with targeted questions, and then do serve sizes in terms of macros, and just to get that out there, because I want people to realize, like, I'm so desperate for people to realize that food isn't something to be feared, and you can eat well and you can enjoy it. And I've had so many people lately be like, oh my gosh, light bulb moment. And I just want more people to experience that. So I hope this episode has got the cogs turning. Absolutely. That you can most definitely enjoy food, not feel guilty, not be afraid, eat consistently, eat moderately, and be happy.
So we have a plugged-in initiative here at Turn Sounds as well, where you can support us with a little bit of money every month, and we give you extra content. And I'm sure that this week's extra content will
be good.
Pretty
actually.
cool.
Haven't thought about it yet.
Worth looking into. We'll give you some resources or something. Abby will put together something really cool as a takeaway from today that you only get if you're happy to support us.
Yes.
The money goes towards our recording instruments and it doesn't cover our time for researching. We're still kind of covering cost.
It's okay.
But if you continue to support us, we might get a little bit of pay for our research as well.
Would be lovely.
But for now, it's covering all the expenses of just getting this podcast out to you.
Yes.
So we thank you for that if you are plugged in already. And
yes.
I will encourage you, please. It's not that much. If you can afford it, send some us way.
$5.
Yeah, for the month.
For a month. That is nothing, guys. Come on. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.